We continue now at the top of Daf Tzadi Ches Amud Aleph in Mesechet Yevamos. This is Yevamos Daf 98a. The Gemara continues to make an inference from the Brisa. Ha'isura ika. The Brisa says that if you have a situation of converts, the case over there was you have twin brothers who converted. So in that case, we say that there is no Isser de'oraisa of Eishesach, but the implication is that there is an Isser d'Rabbanan of Eishesach. Rashi over here says Ha'isura ika midrabbanan. In other words, one of those brothers would not be able to marry the wife of the other brother midrabbanan. There'd be a midrabbanan prohibition of Eishesach. Why? The people shouldn't get mixed up by a situation of brothers who are Jewish. This would therefore be a difficulty against Rav Acha. Again, Rav Acha said that when you have this situation of brothers who convert, there is no Isser of Eishesach, even on a D'Rabbanan level. And so the Gemara answers, no, hu adin dafilu isura nami leka. Could be the Brisa means to say that there's no chiyuv of Eishesach in this situation, but there's no isur midrabanan either. V'aydi deboy lemisni seifa avol chayavin. But since the Brisa at the end, there it talks about the case where they were born b'kedusha, so in that case we say there is a chiyuv of Eishesach. So since it uses the word chayav over there at the end of the Brisa, so tana nami reisha in chayav, and that's why the reisha of the Brisa, the beginning of the Brisa says they are not chayav, but in reality it's not just that they are not chayav, there's no isur d'Rabbanan as well. And the Gemara continues, Amar Rava, Rava says, Hada Amar Rabbanan, that which the Rabbanan say, Ein Av Mitzri, that when it comes to a Mitzri, to a non-Jew, so we say there's no paternal lineage, Lo Teima Mishum Deshtufe Bezima Delo Yedia. Don't say that it's because there's so much znus by the idol worshippers that therefore we don't really know who the father of this person is. Avol Yedia, but let's say you'd have a situation where we would know for sure who the father was, Chashinan, so then maybe there would be a concern. That's not true. Ela Afilo Diadia Nami Lo Chashinan. And even if you have a situation where you know for certain who the father of this individual was, still, there's no concern. We don't consider it paternal lineage when it comes to the non-Jews. Because let's say you have a situation of two brothers who are twins. That's the case we had in the Brisa on the previous Amud. So in that case, they both came from the same drop. In other words, it's clear that they came from the same father. And then they split into two in the womb. And what does it say in the Seifa? It says that in such a situation, there's no chalitza and there's no yibam, meaning even though it's clear that these brothers have the same father, they're not considered to be paternal brothers in terms of the halach of yibam. Shmamino, you see from this, afkure rachman lazari, that it's the pasuk that says that the father, when this father has children, they're considered hefker by the pasuk. They're not considered to have this paternal descent. Tichsiv, like the pasuk says, besar chamorim besarim v'zirmas susim zirmasam. It says that their semen is like the semen of the horses. Again, it's like the animals. It's not considered to be a real lineage. They're not considered to be related through the father, and therefore, again, these halachas of yibam and chalitza do not apply. And Rashi over here says, Had amur rabbanan ein av lemitzri, that which the rabbanan say there's no av, there's no paternal lineage for the mitzri. And in the Mesoras Hashas it says svar macherim is lagoy. It doesn't just mean an Egyptian; it means any non-Jew. The point is, even if you have a situation where you can say it's like a katan shanola, like a conversion. Let's say you had a case where the pregnancy again was shelo b'kedusha, but by the time the child was born, it was already b'kedusha. The child didn't need to convert because the mother had already converted while she was pregnant. So the yesh lo she'er min ha'em, in that case, as we've said before, there is considered to be a lineage from the mother's side in that case. Kishar Yisrael Gomer, like any other full-fledged Jew. The ein lo she'er min av, but still there's not going to be considered to be a lineage or a kinship from the father's side. So lo teima mishum deshtufe zimuhu v'lo yadin. And don't say that the reason just is because we don't know avu amanu who the father is. Aval hecha diyadia. But let's say we knew for sure who the father was. Kagon hayu aviv v'imo chavushim beveiso asurim. One case could be, for example, let's say the father and the mother, they were in prison. To lo nivelo la'achar. We know for sure she had no relations with anyone else. So still chayshinan. Still we're going to say there's not considered to be this paternal lineage or this paternal relationship. Let's say between two brothers. V'inolad b'kedusha delekal lememar kakatan shanolad. Let's say the child was born b'kedusha. Again, the mother had already converted at the time of the birth, so you're not saying that it's katan shanolad. Lahave leinami she'er of dahavada yavuhu. Then we might suggest that we should say that it's considered a kinship of the father as well, because this is certainly his father. So again, that's what Rav is saying. We do not say that. We still say that there's no kinship to the father's side. In other words, again, you have the case of the two brothers who are twins, and it says over there, there's no chalitza, there's no yibam. Yolef time, we're learning from the end of the Brisa. The Ime Reisha Lo Matzi Lamelef. Now you can't learn from the first case of the Brisa. The Afilu Shera Aim Ein Lo, because in that case there's no kinship even from the mother's side. The time allowed Mishum Dezir Masusim Wela Mishum Dechekatan Shanola Dami, because over there, again, the first case in the Brisa where they're converting, so that's considered Katan Shanola. They don't even have Shera Ha'im. But at the end of the Brisa where there is She'er Ha'im, where it's no Lud B'Kedusha, but still we say over there that there's no Chalitza, there's no Yivam, and the idea is that there's no kinship to the father's side, as the pasuk says, Zir Mas Zera, it refers to the seed. Shu Yorek Echetz Kezera Mayim HaMekalech B'Koach. When the pasuk says Zir Mas Susim Zir Masam, again, it's comparing the Zera to that of Susim, and therefore again there's not considered to be this kinship from the father's side. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof, and this proof is relevant to the Machlokas Amoroim we had on the previous summit. In a situation, let's say you have brothers who converted, so the question over there was, is there an Isser of Eshasach? That was a Machlokas between Rav Acha Bar Yaakov and Rav Sheshes. Rav Sheshes was strict, and Rav Acha Bar Yaakov was lenient. So the Bryce over here says, Diyomer Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi says, Maisa ben Niftayim Hager, there was a story with Niftayim who was a convert, Shenasa Eshas Achiv Me'imo, that he married the wife of his brother. They were maternal brothers. Uba Maisa Lefnei Chachamim, and this incident came before the Chachamim. V'yamru Ein Ishas Lager, and they said there is no marriage when it comes to a ger. And so the Gemara says, what kind of statement is that? Does that mean to say that if a ger has kedushin, the kedushin is not effective? Of course that's not true. Eloema, rather, what it means to say is, what the Brisa means is, ein iser eshes ach leger. The Brisa is saying there is no iser of eshes ach when it comes to a ger, and that would seem to be a proof to the position of Rav Acha Bar Yaakov to be lenient that there's no iser eshes ach in these situations. And the Gemara says, my lav is it not, the nosva ach keshu ger, that the brother also, he married this woman. The brother who died, he married the woman when he was already a convert, and it's exactly our situation, and we're saying that there's no eshes ach. And so the Gemara says, Lo no, the nosva kashu ovid kochavim. The case actually was that he married while he was an ovid kochavim. In other words, the first brother married the wife before he had even converted, and therefore that's what the Chacham were saying, Ein ishas lager, there's no iser eshesach, only in this situation because the first brother had not even converted. But if he had converted, maybe we would be strict. But the Gemara says, 1 second, kashu ovid kochavim, if that happened when he was still an ovid kochavim, my lememra, what do you even need to say? That's so obvious that the second brother can marry her. The Gemara says, no, ma'u detema, what might you have thought? Ligzor kashu ovid kochavim atu kashu ger. We should make a gezerah in a case when he was an ovid kochavim, because of a case where if he was a ger, there would be a prohibition. So too, there's going to be an isser when he's an ovid kochavim. Maybe you would think that. Kamash malon, that's what the Bryce is teaching us, that if he was married to her when he was still an ovid kochavim, so then the other brother is allowed to take her as a wife. And Rashi over here says, the nosva achiv hameis kashu ger, the have a kiddush of kiddushin. Again, the Gemara says, isn't the case that the brother who died, he married when he had already converted, so that was a good kiddushin. V'shari yalachiv, and the Bryce is saying that she's now permitted to the brother. De'ein lo achva d'chekatan shenola dami, because again, we say they're not really considered brothers, because they're each considered katan shenola, kekatan shenola, like a newborn. And again, it seems to be like Rav Acha Bar Yaakov says, who is lenient. And the Gemara says, no, kashu ovid kochavim, it was only allowed because the first brother married while he was still an ovid kochavim. Umishin is gayer lo yadah, he never had relations with her once he converted. Lo have a lebak kiddushin, there was no real kiddushin there. Hilkach shari lachva, that's why she's permitted to the other brother. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here another proof. Diyomer ben Yasyon, because ben Yasyon said, Kishalachti l'chrake ayom, when I went to the cities overseas, Matzasi gerechot shenasa eshes achiv me'imo, I found there was a certain convert and he married the wife of his brother. Again, they were maternal brothers. Exactly our case seems to be that they were lenient. Amarti lo, and I said to him, B'ni mihir shecha, I said, my son, who's the one that allowed this? Amar Li said to me, Hare isha v'shiva baneha, there's the case of a woman with her 7 sons. This is a proof she did the exact same thing, that this is permitted. And then he went on to say, Al safsal zeh, on this bench, Yoshev Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva sat, V'yomar shnei devarim, and he said the following 2 things. Ger nosei eshes achiv me'imo, number 1, exactly our case. A convert is allowed to marry the wife of his brother if it's his maternal brother. V'yomar, and he also said the following. The pasuk says in Sefer Yonah, Vayhi devar Hashem el Yonah shenis lemor. It says that the word of Hashem came to Yonah for a second time. Shenis dibra imo shchina, the second time the Shechina spoke with him, but shlishis lo dibra imo shchina, there was no third time that the Shechina spoke with him. In other words, this was the last time that Yonah communicated with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In any case, the Gemara says, Katani mias, nevertheless, what does it say over here? Ger nosei eshes achiv me'imo. It says that a ger is allowed to marry the wife of his brother. Again, this is the maternal brother. Seems to be that we're lenient in this case, and it follows Rav Acha Bar Yaakov. My lav, is it not the nosva achiv keshu ger, that the case is that the first brother who married her, they got married when he had already converted. And again, it's exactly our case. And the Gemara again says, Lo, no, denosva kashu ovid kochavim. The case might be that he married her while he was still in ovid kochavim, and only in that situation would we be lenient, and that everyone would agree with. Gemara says, Ma'ila Meimer, but if that's the case, what's the chiddush? Of course, the second brother is allowed to marry her if the first brother only married her when he was in ovid kochavim. The Gemara says, no, Ma'u detema, because what might you have said? Nigzor kashu ovid kochavim, atu kashu ger. We should make a gezer in the case when he was in ovid kochavim, because of a case when if he would have married her as a ger, that would have been a problem. So then ovid kochavim, maybe we make a gezer as well, and we say that's a problem. Kamash malon, the Bryce is teaching us, no, it is not going to be a problem if the first brother married her while he was still in ovid kochavim. And Rashi over here says, Hare isha giores, we have this case of a giores, v'shiva baneh, she has 7 children, shehitter len, Rabbi Akiva allowed this. Liso isha, seishes achiv umehen lamarti, he allowed the man to marry the wife of his brother, and that's where I learned this heter from. But the Gemara continues, Umi mehemen, but should we really believe this individual, this ger, when he quotes the ruling of Rabbi Akiva that ends up being in his own favor? V'yomer Rabbi Abba, Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, but didn't Rabbi Abba say in the name of Rav Huna, in the name of Rav, Kol Talmud Chacham Shemor Halacha Uba, any Talmud Chacham who issues a halachic ruling and that ruling affects him, so Im Kodem Ma'isa Amr, if he issued the ruling before the ruling actually affected him, in other words, he said the ruling over in the name of the particular Talmud Chacham, then it happened to be that case happened to him after the fact, so then Shomin Lo, so then we listen to him, we believe him, because at the time that he reported the ruling from his Rebbe, it still did not affect him personally. V'imla, but if not, meaning if it affected him personally at the time that he's reporting it, so Ein Shomin Lo, so we don't listen to him. And so the Gemara answers, if you want, we could say that in this particular case, he actually said the ruling over before it affected him personally. If you want, we could say another answer, because he said he had a proof over here, because he said, look, here's a case of a woman and her 7 children, so since he had evidence supporting the ruling, therefore we believe him. And if we want, we could say another answer, it's different over here, because he said something else that Rabbi Akiva had said, meaning he made the statement about that Rabbi Akiva had said, Vayhi Dvar Hashem El Yona Shenis Lemor, the statement regarding Sefer Yona. So the fact that he reported another thing in the name of Rabbi Akiva, that's why we believe him regarding the issue of Eishasach. And Rashi over here says, Im Kodem Shaba Ma'isa Liyado Hayaragil L'Shenosa L'Talmidav. If before it actually affected him personally, he used to teach this halacha to his Talmidim. So Shomin Lo, so then we listen to him. Vimla, but if not, Hol Dvar Chideshu, since this is a Chidesh Shema B'Shvil Ma'isa Shabal Liyado Omra. Maybe he's only saying it because it affects him personally. And Rashi continues, Hari Isha v'Shiva Banah, he brought proof, he brought evidence from the case of the woman with her 7 children. Raya shel kodem l'chein hevi. In other words, he brought a proof from something that happened before this, and therefore that acts as supporting evidence. Or you could say it's different over here, because he also had a statement regarding Sefer Yona. Since he's already believed on that statement, so then he's believed on the other statement as well, because it's clear that what he's saying is true, because he received these traditions together. And the Gemara continues, Amar Mar, the master said, Vayhi Dvar Hashem El Yona Shenis Lemor. It says again that the word of Hashem came to Yona a second time. Shenis Dibra Imo Shechina, Shlishis Lo Dibra Imo. It came a second time, but not a third time. There were no more communications from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Yona after this. And so the Gemara asks, Vaksib, but doesn't the pasuk say in Sefer Malachim, Hu Heishav Es Gevul Yisrael Milavo Chamos Ad Yom Ha'arava, Kidvar Hashem Asher Diber Biyad Avdo Yona Ben Amitai Hanavi. Talks about the fact that the borders were returned, just like the word of Hashem that came to Yona Ben Amitai. So you see, there was a communication from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to Yona after this incident. And so the Gemara answers, Amar Ravina says, Al Iskei Ninvei Ko Amar. When we said there was no more Dvar Hashem to Yonah, that only refers to Dvar Hashem that was relevant to the city of Ninveh. This was a Dvar Hashem that was relevant to something else, and therefore that is not included in what we learned before. Rashi over here says, Al Iskei Ninvei Ko Amar, Delo Dibra Imo Al Iskei Ninveh, Al Ashtei Pa'amim. There are only 2 communications regarding the city of Ninveh, but there may have been other communications with Yonah, according to Ravina. And the Gemara continues with another answer of Nachman Bar Yitzchak. Gamar of Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, Hachi Kamar, this is what it means to say. Kedvar Hashem Asher Diber Biyad Avdo Hanavi. It means to say not that there was a communication regarding this issue over here in Sefer Malachim about the borders of Israel. Rather, it means to say that it was similar to that which was communicated to Yonah, meaning to say as follows, Keshem Shenepach Leninveh, Meira Letova, just like by Ninveh, the decree changed from evil to good. So Kach B'yemei Yeravam ben Yoash, so too the same thing happened in the times of Yeravam ben Yoash, Nepach lehem liyisrael meira l'tova. The Gezerah went from bad to good. In other words, their borders were returned, which was a good thing. It was similar to what happened in the times of Yonah, but it wasn't the actual prophecy that was given to Yonah, because again, there were only those two prophecies. There were no more after that. And the Gemara continues, Tashma, coming here a proof again to the same issue that was argued about above between Rav Sheshes and Rav Acha Bar Yaakov in terms of whether when you have a situation of converts, is there going to be an issue of Eishesach? The Brisa says, Ger shahaya leidaso b'kedusha v'horaso shalo b'kedusha. Let's say you have a convert. Now he was born b'kedusha. By the time he was born, the mother had already converted, but the pregnancy took place shalo b'kedusha. She had not yet converted at the time that she became pregnant. So the Brisa says, Yesh lo she'er ha'em, there's considered to be kinship from the mother's side, ve'ein lo she'er ha'av, but there's not considered to be kinship from the father's side. Ketzad, how so? Naza achoso min ha'em, let's say he marries his sister from the mother's side, meaning his maternal sister, so yotzi, so then they have to separate. But min ha'av, but let's say it's a sister from the father's side, a paternal sister, yekayim, then he can keep that marriage, he can maintain that marriage. Achos ha'av min ha'em, let's say it's the sister of his father, but it's the maternal sister of his father, so then yotzi, then they have to separate. And we'll take a look at Rashi over here. Ger shahaisahu raso shalo b'kedusha v'leidaso b'kedusha. Again, the convert, he was born. At the time he was born, it was b'kedusha, but the pregnancy was not b'kedusha. Nasa achoso min ha'em. If he marries his sister from the mother's side, meaning he marries his maternal sister, shenolda biyosa ovedas kochavim. Now, the case over here is the sister was actually born before him. She was born while the mother was still an ovedas kochavim, was still an idol worshiper. Yotzi, so they have to separate. That's a bigger chiddush because now that sister wasn't even born at the time, wasn't even born after there was already a conversion. Now, even though in that case it's not his real sister at all, because in that case it's going to be considered like katan shenolad. But we make a gezerah because maybe he's going to come to marry the sister that was born after he was born. Now, in that case it would actually be a situation of kares. Because both of them were born b'kedusha, the mother had already converted by the time they were born. And if you have a situation of a sister, a maternal sister, havaki Israelis, that's the same thing as his full Jewish sister. Sheyalda ben Obas, it would be the same thing as a Jewish mother who had a son and a daughter. So in that case, it would actually be a doraisa. So therefore, even in a situation where the sister was born while she was still in Ovedas Kochavim, technically it actually should be okay. But the Bryce is saying that it's going to be Asr Midrabanan because of this gezerah. But mina'av yekayim, but let's say it's only a sister, a paternal sister, so then he can maintain that marriage. Shahakol yodin de'ein av la'ovid kochavim, because again, everybody knows there's no paternal lineage, there's no kinship from the father's side when it comes to idol worshippers. V'inami asi leminsav bas aviv sheyolid me'isha acheres. Now, even if this would, let's say because of this, we would come to allow him to marry the daughter of his father, let's say from some other mother, misha nesgayer, and let's say there was already a conversion at that point, lo ichbislan, we wouldn't care about that. Because again, that's not considered his son anyway. So even though she had converted, let's say the father had a daughter from another mother, and the mother fully converted, still we wouldn't care because the fact is they're only related through the father. And again, there's no kinship from the father's side at all, so it would not be a problem. Achos ha'av min ha'em yotzi. And then the Brisa said that even, let's say it's the sister of his father, but it's the maternal sister of his father, even that's going to be a problem. Now, why should that be a problem? Rashi says that's just a gezerah misham achoso min ha'em. That's just a gezerah because people will get confused with his actual maternal sister, which is a problem. So we even say the maternal sister of his father is a problem, Kedamron, as we will say, and we'll continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Tzadi Ches Amud Beis.